Well, this Roe Doctrine, as it's now known, extends from Argentina to Greenland and Canada, and they regard that as their neighborhood, and they're the policemen, and that's always been the case, but not always enforced, and now it will be. Uh, Quickly on the hit list is going to be Colombia, which has been harboring a cocaine industry that is the scourge of the world. It's the only place it's grown. And, they used Venezuela as an ally and Central America and Mexico. And of course, boats across the Pacific and the Atlantic to get to markets. So Colombia is in the crosshairs for sure. The Americans have had boots on the ground in Colombia off and on for 20 years and been unable to stop the cartels there, who have become bigger than most nation states in terms of annual revenues. They're gigantic. The other one in the crosshairs is Mexico. And the Mexican president gets along, the new president gets along quite well with Trump. And she has done so by putting 10,000 Mexican troops on the Mexican side of the US Mexico border to help stop the border problem. But Mexico has not been able to get out from under the cartels and corruption in the country. And I predict this year that Trump will, possibly with her not necessarily happy agreement, will send in special forces to help Mexico clean that up. That country is dangerous and it's a mess. So that's the next one. And Cuba is an obvious one.
I mean, that is an extraordinary to think that those three things might happen in relatively quick succession. Banking that he is already now responsible for the running of Venezuela, but to go into Colombia, where and I agree with you, the narco economy is huge and destabilizing, not just for the Americas but globally. Um, but that is a tough nut to crack that will take a lot of military resource. I was stunned reading your Substack to see the scale of what America is likely to do in Mexico, and that Mexico is okay with that. And then to do Cuba as well. I mean, that for a president who has sort of said that he's there to stop conflict, that's a very aggressive and expansionist foreign policy.
Yeah, his rationale is that he's liberating these poor people that live in these countries, which and there's also resources and other logistical reasons to take control of them or at least control them somehow. I don't think the Mexican president agrees that they should come in and help, but I don't think she's going to have a choice. First of all, they rely on the United States completely for trade. And secondly, I mean, I have all kinds of friends who have homes in Mexico, and it is so dangerous. Their bodyguards have bodyguards. It is a violent, no, there's a massive, there's as many people murdered in Mexico every year as live in, uh, parts of London. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands. It's terrible. And so that country has to be rescued from itself. And these cartels are very powerful politically. They assassinate leaders, they interrupt democracies and the social life. It's quite important. So in a way, I would see any movement to helping Mexico sort out its problem as a liberating event, not as a conquest event. And just like I think Venezuela is the same, Cuba may or may not be the same. There may be an uprising in Cuba among people who don't like the economy's a mess there. Colombia, I think the people would be more than happy to get rid of the cartels there. So, it's a mixed bag of things. And I'm just projecting what I think, just following the logic of what he's done so far. And we know he can do this. This is the most powerful country in the history of the world. And, and then, of course, he also, was taking upon himself this role. And, he not only invaded and abducted Venezuela's head of state, but, hours before he called Iran and put them on notice that he was locked and loaded and they better not shoot protesters in the street. So he's taking on Iran. He's taking on Venezuela. And he's also indirectly taking on China and Russia by doing so because they're all enmeshed economically with one another.
So I want to get to the sort of the global map. Um, in the second half of our conversation. Before we get to that, though, you've also written about Greenland, and that is that's an extraordinary thing. I mean, the annexation of Canada, which again I want to ask you about because your thoughts on that last time were fascinating, and I was interested to see your analysis this time too. Um, but Greenland, we're talking about a NATO ally in the Danes saying emphatically no, and yet Trump keeps up the rhetoric nonetheless. Um, is he serious? I mean, could we see some sort of compulsion on the Danes or even force used to annex Greenland?
Well, I think it's trolling, but the motive behind it is sincere. They want to be able to have the run. I mean, they don't want Greenland. There's nothing there except some critical minerals and some strategic value in terms of space programs and, governing the Arctic. So, he wants a few military bases, he wants a few mines built there. He can get that. He doesn't have to take them over. So this is trolling. This is to soften up the negotiation on the part of the one who's being sought. Same with Canada and the 51st state, which is an enormous insult. I mean, Canada is bigger and richer than the United States, richer resource wise than the United States. And to sort of, throw off an offhand remark that we could become the 51st state is insulting. But again, it changes people's minds. Listen, since he's been trolling Canada and Greenland, nobody's mounted a big military force along the border to protect themselves. They don't have it. So what they've done is they've been given notice, and he's going to use this as leverage in negotiations with them for military bases or for whatever else he chooses.
And in your Substack, you wrote that the deal for you comes down to either Canada pays an unaffordable amount towards the US missile defense scheme on the basis that Canada benefits from it too, um, or otherwise it cedes sovereignty. I agreed with you when you said in reality this isn't about a compromise on sovereignty. That will just never happen. And what's the point? Canada and the US are so close. But it is but he's effectively creating leverage that ends up giving the US what? Sort of secure access to Canadian minerals. Basing seems already a given, to be honest. I mean, Canada has hosted key NORAD sites for generations. So it's more than just a military angle with Canada, is it not?
Well, I think it's with Canada, it may be the Arctic, it may be strategic. There is a concern. Canada has neglected its military. It's never met its NATO commitments or its NORAD commitments. It's been very, very naughty in that respect, and that's Trudeau's fault. He was a joke. So the point is that it has lived protected by the United States, and they have a very good relationship. The ironic thing, of course, is that most of Canada's oil mining and manufacturing industries are American controlled. So, it's almost kind of an autonomous economic region of the United States as opposed to an independent nation with a freestanding, powerful army to defend its borders. So it's a different deal. It's a different kind of thing. And actually taking it over, I think, is just the threat. This is like the schoolyard bully who says, "Give me your candy." You say, "I won't." He says, "I'll hit you with this club." So you give him the candy, but he's not going to hit you. So, because he got what he wanted.